Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. I'm thrilled that you are listening today. I feel like that's my my tagline that I always say whenever I start these podcast episodes. This is a place where I talk about health and wellness and biohacking, and I am just so happy that you are tuning in. I am a registered holistic nutritionist specializing in women's health at this point, and mostly fertility, kind of going into pregnancy, postpartum, and that whole world right now. Kind of just like following my own journey and doing education and research that reflects where I'm at, and then spitting it out and giving it to you and helping you if you are in that same place. So I actually have my new course that's out. It's called Baby Steps. It's for all the people out there who want to optimize their health before starting to try to conceive. I would highly, highly recommend this for everybody, no matter where you are on your fertility journey. If you have started trying or if you have not and you want to, if you want to get pregnant in the next year, this is for you. I really, really recommend it. Preconception in general, that term preconception health is really becoming trendy now, which is great because I really think we need to be focusing on it instead of focusing on fertility. So I am what I mean by that, I guess I should explain, is preconception health is very proactive and preventative, whereas a lot of the time when we talk about fertility, we talk about fertility struggles and it's reactive. It's reacting to you not being able to get pregnant, whereas preconception health is, hey, let me get as healthy as I can be before we even start trying and hopefully avoid any issues about not being able to get pregnant. So that's like my take on it. That's what I talk about. And that's kind of the world that I want to be in. And speaking of the worlds that I want to be in, shout out to all of the biohacking conferences that have happened in the last few weeks. Breaks my heart that I haven't been able to go to any of them this year. Oh man, last year I went to the biohacking conference in, where was it? Miami. And it was the 9th one. And this is the Dave Asprey conference. And I met two of my really good friends today, Katie and Marjorie, and we're still really close friends. And it was so fun. There were definitely things I did not like about the conference. And I did a full review. Honestly, the review was a little savage, but I did a full review. And this year I couldn't go because I am super pregnant and, that comes with aches and pains. And also I don't want to travel on a plane while I'm pregnant. I don't want the radiation. It's not recommended this far in pregnancy to be traveling that far from home. So lots of things, but otherwise I would have gone to the 10th annual one by Dave, even though there's some things I don't like that happened last year, but I still probably would have gone. And then there was the one by KetoCon recently on the same weekend, which was Hack Your Health. And I heard that was really good as well. Maybe I'll bring on someone to kind of like debrief them and go through them. I'd love to hear everyone's take on them. I think that would be really interesting. So I will say that if you are somebody who's in this health and wellness space, and especially biohacking, I will really, really try to go to A4M in December, which is in Las Vegas. And this is what does A4M even stand for? Oh my gosh. Aging for medicine, anti-aging for medicine, something like that. And this one seems really cool. A lot of biohackers go there as well. There's a lot of between longevity and biohacking, there's a lot of crossover. So I would love to go to that one. It might not be doable, but next year I will definitely be going to the Health Optimization Summit, which I don't know if I can say this on air, but maybe I'll just tell you because I don't know how many people are even going to know about this, but Health Optimization Summit is the massive biohacking summit in the UK. And I think it usually happens around May, June every year. I think so. It's led by Tim Gray. I've known Tim for quite a while. We've never met in person, but we run in the same circles. And there's word on the street that there might be a US version coming. I don't know for sure. I don't know anything. I don't know, but I would love that. So if that's next year, I will definitely be going to that in the US. And next year I will probably do biohacking conference, maybe KetoCon, we'll see. So I'll definitely, let you know, because I love meeting all of you in person. And I also get to meet all the brands that I work with, which is so fun. And that face-to-face value is really the best part. It really is the best part. Like, the speakers are great, but meeting the brands, trying new products, meeting my audience in person, is easily my favorite aspect of it all. So I really, really encourage you to check those out if you haven't already. And I will obviously let you know what I go to. Would love to see more of a women's biohacking conference, just throwing that out there, or a women's biohacking retreat, which would also be really great, like something in Mexico or something. Anyway, so that is coming next year. Before we dive into today's episode, let's do DM of the day. Man, I have a few that I want to talk about. But we'll just do one. We do one a day. So DM of the day or DM of the week essentially is people send me DMs and I read them to you and I tell you my 2 cents. They're all over the map, like health questions, people talking about the podcast, people talking about other people, they're all over the place. But basically, I just read them out loud and give you my 2 cents so that, we can chat about things that are beyond the scope of just this episode. If you want to send me a DM, feel free at Biohacking Brittany. I keep all of them anonymous when I air them, so you don't have to worry about anything like that. Okay, so this woman wrote, "Hi, Brittany. I hope you're doing good in your last trimester. I follow you since long ago, and I have this dilemma, so I thought about you to see what is your point of view. I'm finishing my 3rd trimester, and I have been doing good, but I didn't follow the recommendation of eating 5 smaller meals a day. In brackets, I'm used to eating 3, sometimes 2, and I have PCOS and some insulin resistance. Well, I started to notice 2 major things: constipation and lots of gas and burping, not normal in me. And I am more hungry at night when I get home, and perhaps I eat too much, then I don't have a good night's sleep. So I don't know if it really makes sense to eat 5 smaller meals a day or 4 or 6. Could you share this point of view? I had to start taking laxative teas and herbs." Okay, so lots going on here, and I will tell you exactly what I told her. So my recommendation is for pregnancy. Actually, it's kind of always my recommendation, but especially for pregnancy, especially for 3rd trimester, I don't think that you should be following any sort of meal plan whatsoever. The idea of tracking your meals seems outrageous, especially during 3rd trimester. This is because this trimester, you're putting on the most weight. The baby is growing the most rapid. The baby is putting on the most weight, which is really, really important. We don't want to restrict that. We don't want to not provide enough nutrients and calories for that baby development. So the idea of tracking meals seems just not needed at all, even with PCOS and insulin resistance. So my recommendation, and this is kind of what I've always done and what I recommend to other people, is to follow what your gut is saying and intuitively eat. When you're hungry, eat food. When you're full, stop eating. So even if you have whatever's left on your plate, say there's 30% left on your plate, just leave it. If you're not hungry, don't eat it. And you don't need to eat every 2 to 3 hours. You don't need to track it that significantly during pregnancy. There should be absolutely no goal of weight management, weight loss, or anything like that during pregnancy. Again, it's just very unrealistic and doesn't make sense. So I would just, and this is what I told her, I said, please just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're not. If you eat before bed because you're hungry, that's okay. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you need to eat, that's okay. I do that all the time during 3rd trimester, okay? The body needs nourishment and it is telling you, hey, we don't have enough calories to continue developing this baby as much as we would like. So that is super important. You have to listen to your body during this time and kind of step away from trying to control the numbers, the macros, anything like that. So please, please tap into that intuition, follow your hunger cues. They are there for a reason. Intuitive eating is popular and trendy for a reason. So go into that. Now, with the PCOS and the insulin resistance side, what I would recommend is when you are eating, add in enough protein and fat to support that. So you don't want to like carb overload. You don't want to be eating cupcakes all day. You want to be having protein shakes, protein bars, enough animal protein if you eat animals, that sort of thing. And same with fat. So like adding in coconut, everything, coconut milk, coconut yogurt, coconut oil, adding in avocado, having healthy fat from eggs is great as well. So just making sure that you're adding enough fat and protein to everything that you eat. So every time you are hungry and you go into the kitchen, you're like, okay, it's time for me to eat. Look at actually the food that you're making and make sure you're adding in enough healthy fat and protein to whatever it is, even a snack, right? So many easy ways to do this. Think like apples and almond butter. Almond butter has the fat and the protein in it. Apples has the carbohydrates. That's so easy. People do like yogurt and granola. Yogurt, again, has the fat and the protein in it. So just really pairing things in a way that makes sense without going into too much detail. I don't think you need to track your macros. I don't think you need to track how many meals you're having. And that is what I would suggest. With the last point I'll make on this is with the constipation and the gas and the burping, I would argue that you're potentially not eating enough food or you're not hydrating enough as well. So I drink a ton of water. You need to be drinking a ton of water during pregnancy in general. It's super, super important. I think it's, oh gosh, I'd have to look it up. I forget what it is, but there is a recommended daily amount based on your pre-pregnancy weight. So I think is it half of your weight in ounces potentially? Does that make sense? So something like that. And then obviously once baby's born and you're breastfeeding, that actually like doubles. It goes crazy. Like you need even way more. So hydration is super important and intuitive eating is where I think this comes in. I would be very careful with laxatives during pregnancy. I have never taken a laxative during pregnancy. I honestly, I haven't taken many laxatives in my life in general. I would be really careful with that. Other things you can do for constipation is exercise. That's really, really helpful. Pregnancy, you could do like walking, swimming, even stretching and yoga can kind of like help twist and move the bowels. So that might be great as well. Okay. I hope that helped. And I obviously did give her a full response. So I think that would help as well. Before we dive into today's episode, shout out to Glycanage. Glycanage is my favorite way to do a biological age test. I actually just had someone, speaking of DMs, had someone ask me like, what is my preferred biological age test? And it is Glycanage. Now, there are other ones on the market, but Glycanage looks at inflammation, how it impacts your glycans, which therefore impacts your cellular age. I think this is fascinating because there's so many things that contribute to inflammation in the body, like nutrition and lifestyle and stress. So if we can kind of dial that in, then we should be able to lower our biological age. They also do like a free consult as well when you do the test. So that's Glycanage. You can use my discount code biohackingbrittany in all capitals, and that will give you the most amount off, which I highly suggest. I've done this test twice and I'm going to do it again in the summer. And a shout out to Neurohacker. They have the best nootropic on the market, in my opinion. I think that it is, I've just seen so many people love it, including my husband. So filled with minerals, vitamins, and different types of herbs. It's really great for supporting your brain health. And I think that's really important. Memory, focus, less procrastination, more get stuff done, that type of vibe. They also have a lot of anti-aging products as well. Longevity products like their Senolytic product, which is really great too. So they have a lot. I mean, Neurohacker, honestly, like they've really been in the game for a very long time. They're like one of the OG biohacker brands in my mind. So definitely check them out. Again, Biohacking Brittany everything is linked to my show notes and on my website. You will be able to find everything super easily. Okay, so today's episode is all about healing. We talk about chronic disease. We talk about different healing practices, including a lot of breath work. And we also talk about like feeling like a victim once you get a diagnosis. So that's something that I kind of went through. A lot of people kind of go through that, and then they are defined by whatever medical diagnosis that they get or medical statement that some doctor tells them. And so we kind of talk about that victim mentality and how to get out of that and not to be a victim and take control of your health and what you can really do to be like an active participant in your life and your health and not just go with what the doctor says and call it a day. So this is a great episode. I had a lot of fun recording this one. Enjoy this. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, you can at biohackingbrittany. You can also follow me everywhere else, like TikTok. I don't know where else. Facebook, Threads. It's all linked everywhere. And again, send me a DM if you want to chat. They are always open. And thank you for listening. And I will catch you on the next one. Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. I am thrilled that you are listening today to another episode. We are diving deep into the world of holistic healing and personal transformation with my inspiring guest, Swirl Jordan Moore Williams. Swirl is not only a lifestyle transformation artist and holistic guide, but also the COO and founder of the Vitalist Project, which we will dive into a bit later. Her journey began with a personal battle against chronic pain due to multiple spinal issues, which led her to discover and master transformative healing modalities. And we were just talking about biohacking as well, obviously, before we hopped on the air. So Swirl, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much, Brittany. It is an honor to be here. I'm very much so looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah. So I would love for you to take us back to the age of 16. You faced a bunch of health challenges that were obviously very daunting at that age. That's actually when my health challenges started as well, or really manifested enough for me to do something about them. What happened at that age for you? And like, how did that kind of shape your life's journey?
Yeah, so I'm going to take you back just a little bit before that. And when I was 15, I was suicidal and really struggled with being a human. To like really simplify it, I really struggled with being human and just feeling the density of this world and not really understanding very much about myself, about my body, about the way that the world worked. And I just kind of wanted to go home is what it felt like. And the ways that I attempted were really deteriorating to my body in the long run. Gratefully, they didn't work. I did have 2 attempts in 2 different ways, but they didn't work. And then coming to from actually both of those experiences, a different doctor each time and looked at me and was like, well, you must be here for a purpose, or there must be something special about you or something you're supposed to do here, because anybody else that did what you did would be dead. And that really struck me. I was like, whoa, okay. I don't really know what that means, but I'm going to take that in. And I think that my soul knew what that meant. And cognitively, I kind of had to catch up on a conscious level. However, what ended up happening, like I said, was this long-term detriment to my body. And within, I want to say 6 months or so after getting out of the hospital, I started having really chronic pain, like all over my body, and didn't really know what it was from or why it was happening. And I was having debilitating back pain where I couldn't, like some days I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't stand up straight. Like I would start to stand up and just kind of get stuck hunched over. There were days that I couldn't be touched. Like I couldn't be hugged by a friend or my parents. And without it hurting to touch me. So I really went on this journey of like, okay, well, obviously I have to be here. Like going the other route didn't work. So how can I figure out how to get out of pain? And I was diagnosed. I saw so many different doctors trying to figure out what it was. And this is kind of the beginning of like autoimmune stuff where no one was really talking about it yet. And that's what ended up happening for me was I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which I didn't even know at the time was an autoimmune disorder. I had no idea. I'd never even heard those words. And then when the diagnosis came, it was not explained to me like that. And then I also was told that if I continued on, it's like my body continued on in the fashion that it was in, that I would be in a wheelchair by the time I was 30 because I had degenerative disc disease, which basically sounds exactly like, or is what it sounds like, where the discs in my spine were slowly degenerating. And that's what was causing me so much pain along with the fibromyalgia. And then I had the onset of osteoarthritis in my low back and hips. And then seeing a chiropractor that was told that I had kyphosis and two scoliosis curves and like kind of anything that could be misaligned was. And being told that at 16 after, just like a year prior being told, oh, you're here for a purpose was really like it shocking, like to my system. Like I was like, whoa, okay. Well, if I'm going to be here, I don't want to end up in a wheelchair if I could prevent it. So what can I do for myself? Like, how can I help myself heal? And that's really what started my journey. I was like, just really using the pain on a physical, mental, and spiritual, and even emotional level to guide me out of it, to guide me away from it. So it was like I had to go into it to come out of it, and just followed it.
Have you heard about senolytics yet? It is a class of ingredients discovered less than 10 years ago, and they're being called the biggest discovery of our time for promoting healthy aging and enhancing your physical prime. So you know that I absolutely had to get my hands on this. Your goals, your life goals, and your career and beyond require a lot of productivity. I feel that and you feel that. But let's be honest, the aging process is not our friend when it comes to endless energy and productivity. That's why I started using Qualia Senolytic. As we age, we all kind of acquire these cells in our body that are called senescent cells. They cause symptoms of aging that we both feel. Aches, pains, slow workout recovery, sluggish mental and physical energy, and everything kind of associated with that. They're also known as zombie cells. Basically, they're old and worn out and not serving as useful of a function as they once did. So we can take something like Qualia Senolytic, which helps remove these worn out senescent cells to allow for the rest of our cells to absolutely thrive. And one of the best parts is that you actually only need to take this supplement 2 days out of a month. So I like to do this once every quarter. So I'll do 1 month every quarter where I take these supplements just to really clean out the house, to sweep out all of the old zombie cells and really create space for the healthy new ones to absolutely thrive. And you can do the same. You can resist aging at a cellular level just like I am by using Qualia Senolytic. Go to neurohacker.com/Brittany for up to $100 off and use my code Brittany at checkout for an additional 15% off, which is huge. That's neurohacker.com/Brittany, spelled BRITTANY, for an extra 15% off your purchase. Let me know what you think. It's also linked right on my website in the show notes, so it's super easy for you to use. Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. And it's very profound that you are actually open to doing that at the age of 16. Like, I think that's a very young age to have such a profound perspective of, I'm going to do something about this. I'm not going to let this be something that defines me that I have the rest of my life. And I just kind of let it consume me. If there's people listening out there who have maybe had just broad strokes here, have had a recent diagnosis of anything, and they're kind of in that spot right now of, wow, this is really overwhelming. What am I supposed to do? What advice would you give them? Because I've been there, and I remember how terrified I was in the beginning before I decided to do something about it. So I'm just curious if you have any words of wisdom.
Yeah, I definitely was in that place, and I definitely went through kind of my ups and downs with that, with the journey of like, I want to do something about this. I don't know if I can. I don't know what to do. There's no one to help me. There's no answers. I definitely went through that whole cycle for years of kind of like, can I just like not do this? And being, having that internal guidance of like really wanting more for myself. And I guess my advice would be to remember that it's always darkest before the dawn. And what I mean by that is that sometimes life will will break us down, and it will be our darkest of times so that we can break through it. And oftentimes, for whatever reason, as humans, it's like we have to kind of hit those places, like the bottom, like the real rock bottom, sometimes even more than once, to have the acceptance and the realization that something has to change. And taking the responsibility for oneself is the way of that. And so it's like, you're not alone. So many people are going through really chronic issues, and so many of them are mysterious. And we're just like, wait, what is this? And how do I help myself? And so that's my biggest advice, is to remember that once you go all the way down, the only direction to go is back up. And it will get brighter. It will get lighter after it's the darkest. And allowing yourself to feel empowered is really the key that I found. It was all about me taking self-responsibility and finding ways to take my power back, to own my power, because we all have power within us as human beings, and our power comes from this energy, from source, from like the life-giving energy that we all have, and that's what makes us, animated, and this light that's within each of us. And when we can just remember and connect to that, even if it's like the smallest thing, that really is the key of like, oh, I do have the power in me, and maybe it needs to be activated, or maybe I did give it away and I need to take it back. But that's definitely like, it's all about that self-empowerment and finding the power within through your connection to yourself and your inner guidance that will lead the way.
I love that. I think it's very spot on and makes a lot of sense as well. And I do think it does get better. Sometimes we do have to hit those really hard moments and those rock bottoms in order to come and pull ourselves out of it. But most of the time, once you come out of it, you are better than you were before you even hit the rock bottom. So it sounds cliche or cheesy, or, we've all heard it before, but it is a journey, and it does get better. And so I think that's very encouraging for that. So, when you were at that stage, like in those early years, and you were going from doctor to doctor, and everyone didn't really know what to say or wasn't very helpful, what was kind of like the turning point where you kind of started to see the light at the end of the tunnel? Like, how did you start healing from this chronic pain that you were dealing with?
Well, the first thing that I think really started to shift, at least the intensity of the pain that I was feeling, was learning how to manage my energy and my lifestyle. So figuring out, like, on a really basic level, I figured out, there's 6 categories that if I can keep those things in balance, I could keep my pain down. So those were rest, nourish, hydrate, movement, breath, and sound. And then, of course, presence is kind of the center of my little like spiral there that I just described. And when I tuned into each of those things and I could check, like, how can I balance my rest? Because with at least the issues that I was having, if I didn't rest enough, I would be wiped out and I would just be forced. Like, I couldn't even get out of bed. And sometimes, and if I stayed in bed too long and I didn't like get myself up and like try to get myself moving in whatever way that I could, then it would also get worse. So I had to like temper myself with these things and in these categories, engaging it. Like, how am I moving? How am I resting? What is my nourishment like? How am I hydrating? At the time, one of the first simple steps was actually stopping drinking like soda. It was so simple, and it made a significant difference when I was like, oh, I actually just need to have clean water as the majority of the thing that I drink, not the majority of the thing that I drink being soda. And the way that where I was raised and the way that my life was, that was kind of how it was. And that simple change made a huge difference. So that's like hydration. Even looking into food and nutrition, certain foods created extra inflammation. Certain combinations of foods and would make me more uncomfortable. And so even at that time, I didn't even know what organic food was. And that I was actually having issues from having different pesticides and herbicides and different things that are on more conventional foods being put in my body over and over. I had like a high blood toxicity and to these things. And so I really had to change that aspect of my lifestyle. And when I got into breath work, so that was amazing, is because I started to release some of the built up emotional issues that I had from being suicidal, and then going through and having all this pain and wanting to give up, and then wanting to not give up and keep going. Breath started, just even like my first breathwork session and taking my first conscious breath and starting to understand the way that breath works in our body, as far as like when we're breathing energy, like we're breathing more than just the air. And that made a huge shift as well. And then, like I said, with the movement and even the sound and making sound, and how I was from my external sounds as well as like my internal sounds, my self-talk and different things like this. So that really helped me. And then also I had someone who just would not give up on me. So every time I was just like, oh, like I was doing some really intensive chiropractic work, and I had found a chiropractor who had a machine called a Pro Adjuster. It's designed by NASA, and it can lightly adjust the bones. And so, because I couldn't have like a manual adjustment, it was way too painful. And so he was actually a friend of my stepdad's. And so I was like, all right, let's see if this guy can help, after I had gotten all these diagnoses. And he just would not give up on me. I did so many things with him, like physical therapy, sports massage. He helped guide me with nutrition and certain things that I needed, doing like ice and hot therapy. I had a little TENS unit, getting adjusted in those ways. And when I came to him, I think I was probably 18, and I was like, can I just get on like disability? Like, can you sign off on that, so that I didn't have to keep working in the way that I was? And he refused to do that for me. Like, no, like you're getting better. Like it's, you are getting better and you are doing the work. And so I think that that also was really helpful to have somebody who really believed in the power of me healing myself. And then obviously helping me with tools to navigate and to get there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And you're so lucky to have someone like that in your circle at the time, almost like a mentor or, whatever you wanted to call him, just to be able to guide you is very profound. And yeah, I think that's a good reference point for people is like, if you are in this state of darkness or diagnosis or both, and you're seeking help, like look for those people who can really be by your side through this journey and who are going to keep you accountable and help you do the harder healing things consistently, but that end up really helping you to heal long term, right? Like by him not signing off on your, disability, you actually were able to like stick to your healthy habits and get better. And like there was more of a motivation there compared to just like almost like throwing the towel in and being like, yeah, this is what I'm dealing with,
Totally. He really helped. Because I was in a place of stepping into like a growth mindset and being creator in my life, a co-creatrix of my life, and really like started being self-responsible. Like I was saying, he really stepped into that role of like, I'm going to support you and I'm also going to challenge you. And I'm not going to let you go like into this like victim, like this woe is me mentality or like mindset, which is so easy to be in, especially when someone is in pain and when they've got all these diagnoses and they're being told this. It's like it's so easy to just be a victim to your circumstances. And I didn't want that. And I knew I didn't want that. I wanted more for myself. But even when I did try to give up, luckily I had a coach. I had someone there. Like you said, he was a coach. He was a mentor. When I got to a certain level of my pain reduction, it was him like looking back. And this was probably, after 5 years or so of doing work, healing work. And wasn't even seeing him anymore, but was like, oh, I want to do this for other people, and it really inspired me in that way that like, I've really helped myself like significantly. And of course there was still much more work to do at the time. Yet I found that inspiration because I had someone like that was like, wow, I want to help someone in the way that he helped me. And that really helped guide my path as well.
I love what you were saying about the victim mentality. I mentioned this on my podcast a few episodes ago or like a while ago, but I have a couple of people in like my family, extended family, and they present with this like, woe is me mentality for sure. And it's really hard to watch and to listen to. And you can say something to them, like, being very blunt of, you're not a victim. Like you can choose how you react to this. Like, you can say all of those things. And at one point it gets really frustrating because you want them to take accountability and responsibility for their life and their reactions. And it's really hard when it's a family member. So if there's people listening out there who maybe have a partner or a family member or a friend who are in that like mind frame, how can we support them? Like, obviously, I think as biohackers, we tend to have a growth mindset, a lot of us naturally, or we kind of adopt it as we get more and more into like holistic healing and biohacking. But what about those people who are stuck in that victim mindset because it's comfortable and we want to help them, but we don't know how to help them, essentially?
The first thing that I always do when I'm working with somebody who is in this mindset, or even my family members as well, whether it's a client or a family member or even a friend, to try to get them above the line and like above, that's how I describe it, is there's like a line, like there's this drama triangle. That's this lower triangle that's where the victim mindset is. And in there is this triangle that gets played out of the victim and the villain and the hero. And someone is always playing those roles, whether it's a circumstance or a person or whatever. If someone is in that mindset, they will always be looking for someone to blame and someone to rescue them. And so to get them above the line, to step into self-empowerment, into an empowerment dynamic, then someone stepping into actually being a creator instead of a victim, that's where you have the support and the challenger. You've got like coaches. And so to try to get people above the line, I ask questions. I ask quality questions. And my first question is, what do you really want? Because it starts to get them to think about it. Because most of the time they're complaining and they're blaming, and it's like, man, like kind of over and over. And you're just, oh, I don't want to hear this anymore. Like, I know that story that you're just playing the story loop over and over. And so I just like, hey, I love you. And I really want to, like, it seems like you want something to be different than what it is because you're complaining and you're blaming. So what is it? What is it that you really want? And oftentimes, if they can just stop and be like, they can think about that, then they can start to begin to move into more of a creator role, because it's like, what do I want? Well, I want this to be different, or I want, I don't want to be in pain anymore. Well, it's as simple as that. But it's like, okay, well, then what are you willing to do for it? Where is that level? Because that's just that's my way of it, as like guiding people and coaching people, is like to get them to start to move towards owning their own power. And a simple question like that, like finding out, what do they really want? Like, what is this really about? Because sometimes they don't even know. They're just like in their story. So that's the first thing that I always do. And it at least like interrupts that pattern. But that's like a big part that I've learned, at least with anything biohacking that I do, is like, how do you interrupt the pattern that's playing out? And it's a pattern interrupt to get someone to be like, oh, what do I want?
Introducing GlycanAge, the ultimate biological age test that helps you discover, measure, and optimize your health. With GlycanAge, understanding your body has never been simpler or more scientific. GlycanAge is more than just a number. It's a comprehensive analysis of your biological age determined by measuring chronic inflammation in your system, a direct result of your lifestyle choices. The test, which is backed by over 30 years of scientific research and validated by over 200,000 tests, gives you insights published in world-renowned medical journals. Getting started is super easy. The at-home test includes everything you need. Simply collect your sample and send it right back. And in just 3 weeks, the lab will analyze your sample and generate a detailed report on your biological age. They don't just stop there, though. Each GlycanAge test includes a free consultation with one of their experts. They'll help you understand your results and suggest lifestyle changes to enhance your health and longevity. GlycanAge is unique. It responds to lifestyle interventions, unlike other aging clocks. Whether it's through caloric restriction or weight loss or any other healthy habit you might bring in, there are studies that show that these beneficial health changes really can make a difference in your glycan aging. Are you ready to take control of your health? You can use my code BiohackingBrittany at checkout for a 15% off discount on your GlycanAge test. Discover your true biological age with GlycanAge and start optimizing your life today. And then what am I going to do about it now that I've said it out loud to you?
Exactly.
Like, how do I get it?
Yeah. And maybe that is asking for help, but it's not. And that's then the person who's asking the questions to responsibility to help them stay responsible, to not just go into that hero mode of like, oh, well, let me just help you. Let me just rescue you out of here, because they're not empowered. There's that age old like adage, it's like you to teach him, give a man a fish and he eats for one day, teach a man to fish and he feeds his family and himself for the rest of his life. So that's where it's like, that's also the work of the person that's wanting to help this person is like, okay, get them above the line and then try to stay in that equal balanced place of supporter and challenging, but not that like hero or not enabling, not trying to rescue them.
Yeah, it's easy to slip into that rescue mode for sure. Hero mode and like, list all the different things that they could do or the healing modalities that they could try, especially when you know so much too. And I've done this so many times, but it's like you said, I always, well, at least in the last couple of years, now it's different. Like I always just say things like, maybe not this blunt, but like, I can't do it for you. Like I can help you. You can ask me your questions, but like, I can't do it for you. Like it has to come from within, because I'm not going to be there every step of the way. And no matter what, like that's just not possible. So yeah, you can reach out and ask me your specific questions about like nutrition or whatever it is, but I can't make your food and make you eat it every single day, every single meal. That's not possible. So at the end of the day, it has to come from you and your internal why and motivation and wanting to step out of that, victim mindset that they might be in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's why you just always guide them back to their why. What do you really want? Why do you want it?
Yeah. And why do you want it? It's like so profound too. It's like, oh, you want this thing. Oh, I want to feel better. Okay. Why do you want to feel better? Oh, okay. Now let's really talk, like let's really get into what's going on. I'm curious about your thinking or thoughts around mind-body connection, especially as it plays into this idea of victimhood. There's that book that people talk about, what's it called? The Body Keeps the Score. And how do you think, or in your practice and what you've seen, how have you seen that like victim mentality actually show up in people's bodies as like health conditions or health issues?
Yeah, I've seen it show up in a lot of different ways. From just tight muscles to digestive issues to like, I mean, it can manifest in so many different things, because what I have found ends up happening is that the quality of our thoughts, and therefore like the quality of our life and the questions we're asking, it will directly determine the quality of the inner scape, the inner biome. And anytime there's something dysbiotic, an organism that is not, that's more damaging to the body, then that can just sit in these different places, these different pools, especially when it comes to like emotions, it's so crazy. As people say that emotions are like energy in motion, but emotions they're meant to be this energy in motion, like through our bodies. They're meant to be, felt and just moved through. And we end up not wanting to feel our emotions or numbing out and disassociating. And those emotions just get tucked away in our deep, dark corners. And those deep, dark corners are our organs. So it's like deep, deep in our viscera. And people end up getting locked into a stress state because of these, just the way that the world is based on our perceptions. Because there's also, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the biology of belief, which is a Dr. Bruce Lipton's work, epigenetics. And this is pretty, it really explains a lot. Like the genes are every gene is actually present at all times. Like even every disease and whatnot is present at all times in the body. But depending on the protein that's active will create what is actually expressing through the body. And that is created from our beliefs and our perception of the world around us. And so that goes right into the mindset and what we're seeing around us. And so starting to take that ownership and not being a victim to your circumstances or to your genes even, because and that's not what's taught in schools. I mean, it's starting to kind of, catch on, but this science has been around since, I want to say, like the 80s, even when he really started discovering epigenetics. So it's starting to catch on now where people are, oh, I'm not a victim to my genes. Like I can actually determine what is going to happen, based on my beliefs and based on my thoughts and based on my mindset and my lifestyle, can just shift everything.
It's so interesting. I remember, I started learning about that a few years ago, and I find it so empowering to learn about that, because then it's rather than, cancer runs in my family, I have the genetic variations, I'm probably going to get cancer. What am I going to do about it? It's in my lineage, whatever. Rather than that, we can say, oh my gosh, okay, so cancer's in my lineage. Okay, what am I going to do so I don't turn those genes on? What can I do? Let's do research. Let's find other people like me who have done this and have had success. Like it's actually so empowering if you look at it from that perspective. But there's so many people who get these diagnoses from their doctors in the offices, and the doctor will say very similar things of like, cancer's in your family. Yeah, we found a lump. Oh, okay, I guess I have cancer. And it's like just accepting it and then falling again into the victim mentality. Or even like, it's almost easier to have something to blame, like genetics, rather than take responsibility for your health for the last 20, 30 years that have actually turned those genes on that have contributed to you getting cancer in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. It's a moment where we get to decide. And then we hear those stories of, it's like someone who gets diagnosed with cancer, they're told that they've, just wrap up all of your affairs. You've got, 4 weeks to live. And they're like, well, I've always wanted to be a painter in Paris, so I guess I should just go do that. And they just change their whole life. And, they're like, well, okay. It's like there's this form of acceptance, and then also stepping into that responsibility role of like, well, I better just do what I wanted to do then because my time's running out. And 5 years go by and they're still painting in Paris, perfectly healthy. Hear those stories all the time. And I'm not saying that every, cancer story can be like that, but there really is a lot of science being shown now about the power of our thoughts and the power of our beliefs and the power of the work that can be done through meditation and these so many different modalities, actually, like turning inwards, taking self-responsibility, and then creating the life that you love.
Yeah, it took me a while to understand the power of thought, because I didn't really get it. Like I didn't get how it could make that much of a difference. And I remember reading like you have like 60,000 thoughts on an average day. And I started like looking into thought work, and this was a few years ago, and understanding that not every thought is 100% accurate or true or representative of yourself or that type of thing. And then I came across something, I forget even where it was, but it basically said like your thoughts become your words and your words become your actions and your actions become your life. And when I started understanding it like that, I was like, oh, okay, like my thoughts matter, because it's so true. When I'm thinking something, if negative or positive, if I'm complaining, like I'm pregnant right now, like my back hurts. Oh, my back hurts so much. Saying it out loud, it impacts my actions. Oh, I can't work out because my back hurts. Then I become lazy, blah, 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 all these things, right? And it's quickly spirals so quickly. And that actually came from those like repetitive thoughts that you're having. And when you understand that cascade, it's actually, again, so empowering, because you can change your thoughts and you can choose to think more positive, optimistic, not all the time. Like you have to be realistic, obviously, but there is so much you can actually do with thought work through meditation, affirmations, visualization, and breath work. So I love that you really incorporate that in your work.
Yeah, I do. And one of the things that I love to tell people is don't believe everything you think.
Yeah.
In fact, don't believe most of what you think. Because there's so much out there. There's just like this thought clouds that we can just pick them up, and like you said, they're often not even ours. And yeah, incorporating different practices that can help us really create the type of vibration that we want to live in, because like emotions and thoughts and all of these things are different vibrations and frequencies. If everything's light and sound, then there's all these frequencies and vibrations that is coming into our life and coming into our body. And we can determine what we want to do about that, or like I want to live at a higher vibration, which is like definitely a choice, a responsibility that like someone would have to make on their own. But that's like, that can be a choice that's made. And then like, how can I do that? How can I raise my vibe ultimately? And, that's where some different practices that I do. One in particular, I'd love to share with you about that I found is like when like biohacking kind of became like a fad term, I was like, this system is biohacking. Like, this is like the ultimate biohacking but like as a practice that I can do in a fairly short period of time that's like it's like a stack. It's, so we started calling it that here at the Vitalist Project. We call it the Vital Stack because we're stacking multiple practices into this one practice. And what I mean by that is we often, it's like we need to do our breath work, and we need to do our meditation. We might also need to do some contemplation, and we need to do some movement and exercise and. And then it becomes like, oh my gosh, I've got all of this stuff to do to just like care for myself, to like get the quality of life that I want. And then that becomes overwhelming when we're trying to just live our lives. And like you said, you're pregnant, you have a baby on the way. There's probably so many things to do. And how do we add it all in? And still work through like those places of resistance? That's like, oh, my back hurts. Like, asking the question, what could I do? What can I do? Well, what do I want? Yeah, I want this. Well, what can I do about it? And so this practice that I want to tell you about is called EDGU. It's Evolutionary Spinal Maintenance. And it is a movement series that's designed to specifically move and toggle each vertebrae of the spine so that it strengthens and flexes each, all of the muscles up and down the spine and each vertebrae, and gets the cerebral spinal fluid moving up and down your core channel, up your spinal cord, around the brain and back, and making it really fluid and flowing simultaneously. It's told through a story. So your imagination is engaged and it becomes meditative through these movements that are repetitive, but they're also crossing the midline of the body, which is a really important thing to do to get the hemispheres of the brain to talk to each other and activate the corpus callosum, which is like this little bridge between the two hemispheres of your brain. And when the two hemispheres of your brain are talking to each other, then they start to calibrate and balance each other instead of being like really active in one side, which is what ends up happening when we're locked in a stress state. Like I had mentioned stress before. I work a lot with stress and helping people through stress. And because oftentimes what we found, stress is like the cause of like 90% of disease, according to like the World Health Association. It's pretty wild that like something as simple as stress is causing so much issue for so many people. And it's because of the way that our brains work. And our brains don't know the difference between something that is imminent and something that is just coming up and happening. So what I mean by that is like doesn't know the difference between, say, like a bear coming out of the woods, like at us, and someone cutting us off in traffic, or getting in an argument with a family member or your partner, or an unexpected bill. Like, it just doesn't know the difference between them. That's just the way that our brain is developed. And so what happens is we're really adapted for simple types of stress. Like, what I mean by that is, a simple stress is something that has a clear beginning and a clear ending. So something happens and it's like, okay, yeah, this bear is coming at me. I need to fight, flight, freeze, whatever. We go into that stress, that protection mode, into stress state. And we got to do what we got to do. We know pretty quickly whether we make it or not. And we make it. Let's say we make it in this circumstance. And so the bear goes away and we're like, okay, clear ending. The bear left. I'm alive. Great. And then the brain can go back into its growth and repair mode, which is where it's meant to be, which is actually a whole brain function that's happening and not being locked into one hemisphere, which is what happens when you're in protection mode. And now what we have is something called complex stress, which is many beginnings and no clear ending. Like I said, all of those different things, whether it's bills or traffic or whatever it might be, relationship issues, it's like, it's just constantly starting and then never ending. Like, there's no end to it. So we end up getting locked into that state. And one of the modalities that I do is actually like a physical hands-on technique that reboots the brain out of that stress state and interrupts the stress pattern and gives the brain a moment. It's like sending an all good signal to the brain. That's like, the danger's over. And the brain will scan the whole body, realize it's not in danger, and come back into whole brain function on its own in like a matter of like 0.4 seconds. And so then what we found with practicing EDGU, because it's crossing the midline, is it's forcing the hemispheres to talk to each other. And by doing that, they start to balance and calibrate and come out of that stress state. So then, like I said, there's a story that's a part of it, which is this life-affirming, self-reflective story that we start to go through, that each movement, it's a series of movements, and each movement has a specific piece of the story. So you end up going through kind of like inner chores and an outer journey, and then into an inner journey. And this whole time, it's recalibrating your whole system. Like, yes, your brain, also your spine, which, like I said earlier, that goes into all of your tissues and your organs and everything. And so those different emotions and different things that we hid in those deep, dark corners of our organs, they start to get kind of squished out and worked out by doing this movement. It's a constant gyrating of the spine, and while moving the arms, it's done in a specific stance so that all movements directed to the spine. So, and then you're just vibing up the whole time as well. So it ends up being kind of like a workout so you're getting this exercise to all these minute muscles in your core, as well as your arms. And then you're also doing a meditation, and it can be done like very, very quickly. So it's like stacking all of these practices in one, where it's like this it's like mental, but it's also spiritual, and it's physical, and even like esoteric in a way, like really, and it really encompasses it all, like in this one movement series. And when I found this, it is the thing that like took away the last of my pain. In like one class, I felt the most significant difference. Like, it was so immediate, and that I was just like, whoa, what did I just do? That was amazing. And I felt so amazing. And like, just like really, really vibed up. Like, I was just like, woo, like almost like high. And that's what I call it now, just being high on my own supply, because my energy like really moving. And I just was like, I have to do this more. Like anything that I found along my journey that significantly helped me, I've learned about. And how can I do this for myself, but then how can I offer it to others? So that's ended up happening is I not only I learned how to do it for myself, but I, learned how to teach others. And now my husband actually is the lineage holder, and I help him carry that like feminine aspect of this work forward, because it's all about the two halves of us meeting, right? The two halves of our brain, the two halves of our body, the masculine, the feminine, which we all have, a left and a right. And they meet in the middle, in the center line of the body, which is the spine, which is this energetic channel, which is the edge of you. It's the edge where the two sides meet, which is the spine, which is where we get the name EDGU from.
Very cool. Yeah, that's very interesting. I haven't heard of that practice before, and I definitely want to look into it more and do some research and see what I can find online, because it sounds profound. And I love that it works on such a like multi-dimensional
level.
Yeah, multi-dimensional. Exactly. Like spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, like those types of things are really what can move the needle, especially when you're looking at something like chronic pain, rather than just, doing one thing like a chiropractor, which is a very physical modality. So I love that. And I will look into it. Actually kind of reminds me of Kundalini a bit when you were describing it. I don't know what it physically, like, I don't know visually what it looks like, but that's like kind of what came to mind, because Kundalini is also very movement with breath work, with like releasing this emotional, mental state that we can kind of get stuck in. So I thank you for sharing that modality. And if people want to reach out to you and work with you or learn more about these different holistic healing practices that you've shared, where can they go and how can they connect with you?
Yeah, you can check out vitalswirl.com. That's vitalswirl.com. And that will get you a free gift from me that is a calendar tool that I developed to help me slowly take small steps to living the life that I love, and found that it really helps a lot of other people. So I wanted to give that to people so that they could start taking these small steps to living a vital life. And you can that will connect you with me. You can also go to vitalistproject.com and learn more about us and our modalities there.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I will link that in the show notes and on my website so everyone can find you easily. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. This was such a great chat. And I loved opening up about these different issues and struggles and victim mentality and stress and all these things with you. It was really, really profound and needed.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I love talking with you. It sounds like we have just so much in common, and I really hope that all of your listeners can find some relativity and some inspiration as well.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany. If you're interested in finding the show notes or the sponsors for this episode, you can do so on my website, which is biohackingbrittany.com. Remember to follow me on Instagram, where I'm most active. My handle is @biohackingbrittany. And if you're interested in working together and you want to email me directly, you can do that. My email is info@biohackingbrittany.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and having you tune in next week.